Are you a Monster Rancher 2 fan like me? If so, playing Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is simply a must. It's nice to see this game franchise finally get a new entry in the West again. Basically, it has the Monster Rancher series gameplay that revolves around raising monsters to compete against each other before their untimely death. However, you won't be raising Monster Rancher creatures, you'll be raising Ultra Kaiju. The game will quickly urge the player to choose their first monster. I decided to raise Gamora first and headed back to the ranch. We run into a wild Kaiju that is just going apeshit. Fortunately, Ultraman drops from the sky to lend us a helping hand. With that said and done, we can go back to the ranch and I can explain the gameplay loop. Each month begins by feeding your Ultra Kaiju. Right away, I'll give this game props over the original Monster Rancher games because there are actual detailed descriptions of what exactly the foods do. The food will affect your monster's weight, fear, and dependence. On top of that, spices can be applied to the monster's food and can give an additional effect. If you feed your monster the same type of food over and over again, it will eventually get sick of it. Each month is made up of 4 weeks, and at least at the beginning of the game, it could be argued that the smartest thing to do is just to train your monster. Training will take up 1 week and will increase 1 stat if it's a light drill. A harder drill will drastically increase 1 stat, slightly increase another stat, but will decrease another. The harder drills will also raise fatigue and stress more than a lighter training session, though they will still take up 1 week. We'll get to the 6 stats when we cover battling later. Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher freshens up training a bit by adding a couple of things that weren't in the past games. For one, these training locations can be upgraded by doing training sessions there. An upgraded location will make the stats go up more. However, the player will have to be careful to not train the monster too much at the same spot consecutively. The monster will eventually get sick of training in the same location, so it'll be a good idea to bounce around between a couple of spots. Sometimes monster will come out of nowhere and attack a training location. If the player chooses to not attack that monster, they will lower the rank of the training area. Fighting a monster that is attacking a training station will scare off the monster and take up a week. The player can also take a week off and rest their monster. This will lower their anger, stress, and fatigue. The Errantry option will have the player's monster leave the ranch for an entire month to train. The main point of an Errantry is to learn a new technique, but the stat gains can be pretty decent. Again though, if you're going on one, make it about learning a new technique. Hard training for a month will be more efficient for stat raising than an Errantry will be. Expeditions also return, and they are pretty similar to the older Monster Rancher games. The monster will spend a month going through uncharted territories to find items and other neat secrets. Doing expeditions is a nice way to earn some money, get rare items, and is necessary for unlocking certain Ultra Kaiju. I'm personally not the biggest fan of them and prefer to raise my monsters and battle them, but they can be a nice way to break up the gameplay loop every now and then. You can also give your monster a single item every week. If you want to raise your monster through the ranks, you're gonna have to use items religiously. Some basic key items are the ones that lower fatigue, lower anger, or lower stress. I typically use one of these most weeks, as it can help your monster push through training sessions and not have to rest them as much. There are more rare and helpful items, like the silver and gold peaches that raise your monster's lifespan. If one is curious about what items do, and for a list of them, head on over to the Legend Cup. Speaking of anger, if the monster's anger bar gets full, they will go apeshit. I'm not sure if it's monster specific, but my Gamora had to fight Ultraman, while my Suezo ran away for a month. I heard that having your monster go on tantrums can increase their stat caps, but that didn't happen for me. My monsters usually get pissy and just run away for a month or so. Going on a rampage is needed to unlock the big 3 tournaments at the end of the game, so it is important to do it at least once. Alright, so we talked about the ranch a bit, so let's get into the city and what's there. The best new structure in the town is called the Inheritance Cookie Shop. Each monster will have 4 inheritance slots, with the first one being filled by default. Each succeeding slot unlocks each year, so by age 3, all of your monster's inheritance slots can be filled with cookies. These cookies do various things, from forcing training sessions to increase stats more than usual, to giving your monster a bonus in battle. It costs a small sum to buy a cookie at the shop, or you can use an NFC object to create one. Unfortunately, amiibo do not count. Other than that, the city has mostly the same stuff as it did in older Monster Rancher games. There's the shrine where one can create monsters. The player can put in keywords to generate a monster, use NFC objects, enter a specific code, get a seasonal monster, or pick a monster that you've already erased from the field guide, which is a very neat feature. You can also go and take 2 monsters and fuse them together in the research center. The new monster will inherit some of the parent stats. The player can also use an item on it to spice up the combination. Lastly, the association will take care of the player's spare monsters. Now we get into the combat. Let's start off with the 6 main stats, shall we? Life is basically hit points. If your monster's life hits 0, your monster will be knocked out. If neither Ultra Kaiju are knocked out by the end of the match, the monster with the higher percentage of their health remaining will win. Offense will increase the amount of damage that physical attacks give. A higher offense stat will also help the Ultra Kaiju take less damage from the opponent's physical attacks. Physical attacks will be in red squares. Intelligence will increase the amount of damage that intelligence attacks will do. A higher intelligence stat will also help your monster take less damage from the opponent's intelligence attacks. Intelligence attacks will be in blue squares. Skill will help your monster hit more often. Hitting percentages will be shown above the monster's technique. If a monster has more skill, the percentages will be higher. This is Monster Rancher though, so take that with a grain of salt. Speed will help your monster dodge. A higher speed stat means that your opponent's hit percentages will be lower. Lastly, defense will help your monster take less damage from enemy attacks. There are 4 zones where the monsters can use their attacks from. Like in the older Monster Rancher games, the player can flip through attacks if the attacks happen to be in the same slot. I won't lie, if we're talking straight combat, Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher may actually be better than Monster Rancher 2 in almost every way. The dash mechanic is a great one. If a monster dashes, it'll sacrifice 10 guts to move very quickly for a second. This is very important because like in Monster Rancher 2, having a guts advantage helps out tremendously. Guts are needed to use attacks, and having more guts than your opponent helps with hit percentages and damage dealt and taken. Sometimes, getting into a slot to use one of your better moves is simply worth that guts hit. It adds just a wrinkle of strategy that is welcome. Speaking of that, the AI is far more competent in this game than in the original Monster Rancher games. The amount of times that the opponent tracked my movement is insane. They would see that I was trying to desperately get into a specific technique and respond by moving in such a way that I couldn't reach that tech. Sometimes they'll use guts on unwise moves, but I found that to be not that common in this game. Both the AI and the monster can get rid of their basic techs, which is goddamn incredible. It was always kind of annoying to use a move that you wish you didn't have by mistake. At the same time, it was always kind of goofy to get to Mos, the final boss of Monster Rancher 2, and watch it use Headbutt, a horrible basic tech. That doesn't happen here. As your monster rages through the ranks, you should notice that the opponent monsters start to get rid of their basic moves, and you can do that too. It is such a nice touch that makes this game way more difficult than Monster Rancher 1 and 2. Speaking of going through the ranks, the player's monster will start out at the E rank. To advance upper rank, the player will need to enter and win in an official tournament, and that happens every 3 months. Once they beat S rank, as well as have their monster go on a rampage, they will unlock the Big 3. These tournaments will feature monsters that are a notch tougher than the monsters featured in regular S ranks. After defeating the Big 3, the player has to fight a giant and possessed Kaiju. After defeating him, the game will let the player know that they can fight against various Ultramen. When one of them has been defeated, the player can register their current monster into the Hall of Fame. If all of them have been defeated, a cutscene will ensue. I want to shed my light on some positives before I give my criticisms. The fact that they put Ultra Kaiju forms of Suezo emoji is simply incredible and is a nice way to score some nostalgia points. Raising a Suezo in this game is so much fun. The game's soundtrack is pretty great too. In fact, a couple of tracks from Monster Rancher 1 and 2 slip in there. As a dumb completionist, I also really appreciate how there will be a trophy icon next to tournaments that you've already won. Maybe one day, I'll go for them all. Unfortunately for me, there are a couple of main things that derail Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher from being genuinely great. I really like the game, but at a price point of $50, some will definitely find it a bit of a lightweight. The gameplay of raising your monsters over and over again will definitely get old for some after raising only a couple of monsters. That being said, if this type of grindy gameplay can grab you, you'll more than likely find the price to be worth it. As someone who is getting older and is constantly getting more annoyed by things that take way longer than they should, the amount of dialogue can be irritating at times. Holly and Kaiju will sometimes banter back and forth in between weeks, and it will slow the game's pacing down a bit. The older Monster Rancher games weren't 100% immune to this, but most weeks, Holly or Colt will simply tell you how your monster's doing, and then boom, you can jump right back into the gameplay loop. Where I personally think that this is a big problem is save scumming. I'm going to assume that the developers didn't want people to save scum, so they made it time consuming on purpose. I guess I get it, but it's extremely frustrating in a game like Monster Rancher. Monster Rancher is basically an RNG simulator where your monster's battling life can be ended by getting hit by a single move that has 10% accuracy. The consequences are too dire to have save scumming be a chore. The original Monster Rancher 2 had a nice button combo for a software set, and Monster Rancher 1 and 2 DX has a new menu layout that makes it nice and easy as well. This one may not be fair due to my strong nostalgia for Monster Rancher 2, but I personally feel like the Ultra Kaiju don't have the same personality that the monsters do in Monster Rancher. I love watching the monsters just walk around the ranch, making their odd noises, and their attacks just seem to have more variety to them. I know it's kind of a cop-out word, but this game kind of lacks a bit of charm. For a monster simulation game, where the game revolves around caring for these guys, I just think the Monster Rancher 2 did a much better job. The last big thing to complain about is the performance. It's kind of ass. Even just chilling at the ranch with your Ultra Kaiju is somewhat taxing on the game. In battle though, oh Jesus, the frames seem to dip as low as in the teens. It actually gets to the point where it actually affects my enjoyment of the game a bit. I'll watch the battle clock tick down slowly at half speed. This gets extremely noticeable when either monster is poisoned. It's not game breaking or anything, but I really wish there was more time for them to optimize this game a bit more. After spending 20 hours with it, I can say that I enjoyed my time with Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher greatly. This game shows me that it wasn't just nostalgia and the familiar monsters that made me love Monster Rancher 1 and 2. It's the gameplay itself. The gameplay loop is seriously addicting and fun. The game can get a bit tedious at times, which isn't helped by some of the frame drops and save file management taking longer than it should. That being said, I enjoy the gameplay loop a lot and will probably return to the game in the future to get all Ultra Kaiju. I would probably still be playing if the release schedule wasn't so brutal right now. Mario and Rabbids, God of War, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet near this game's release, I decided to give Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher a 5 out of 7. It is an extremely fun game that has some flaws that prevent it from excellence.